This is a battle of the downcountry bikes. In the red corner, the Transition Spur, and in the blue corner, the YT Izzo, which yes, is not actually here, hence the photo. Trying to organise both these bikes in the same space at the same time is nigh on impossible. However, I have ridden both bikes separately, links down below if you want to see the reviews. And in this video, we're talking about how the bikes compare and which is best, if one is indeed better than the other. So we go through how they ride, performance and handling, suspension, geometry, value for money, and I'll try and give my verdict at the end of the video. Before I do dive into this video, a quick reminder to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already by hitting that red button down below. Okay, let's dive in. On paper and in real life, both these bikes are very similar, hence this comparison. They're both 29ers, they both have carbon fibre frames, they both have a short amount of travel. 120 front and rear on the Spur here, and 130 on the YT Izzo. And what's interesting about both the Spur and the Izzo is that Transition and YT are both companies with expertise in longer travel, trail, enduro and downhill bikes. Neither have cross-country race bikes in their range. They don't have that expertise in any way. So they really come at the short travel trail bike category with all their experience of bigger travel bikes and brought a geometry to a short travel bike. This definitely isn't a beefed up cross-country race bike like a Specialized Epic Evo, for example, which is a pure cross-country race bike with beefed up components, give it more capability on technical trails. They are shrunken enduro trail bikes designed to be as light and efficient as possible, but with the geometry and features you want to give that handling on technical fun trails. And the geometry between the two bikes could not be more similar. These bikes are very, very close on paper. So a size large Spur and a size large Izzo compare very well. The Spur is a smidgen longer in the reach and wheelbase. They have the same head angle and bottom bracket height, while the Izzo has a steeper seat angle and longer chainstays, and the chainstays are size specific across the range as well, something the Spur isn't. The Izzo also provides adjustable geometry by way of a flip chip in the rocker linkage, which you can't do on the Spur. But on paper, the geometry differences are very, very small. Both bikes have very similar suspension. They each have a main pivot just above the bottom bracket there, and they each have a trunnion mount shock in line with a seat tube, driven by a very small compact linkage there. One key difference in the rear swing arm is the YT Izzo has a horse link down on the chainstay, whereas the Spur relies on carbon flex in the rear stays to save weight over the pivot hardware on the YT Izzo. Both bikes give you the option of locking out the rear suspension. On this bike, it's a small lever on the shock itself, so you have to reach down and lock it out manually. Whereas on the YT Izzo, it's a very neat SRAM twist lock integrated into the grip on the handlebar to lock out the shock. So really easy to do on the fly. When it comes to actual suspension performance, I set both bikes up with 30% sag for my body weight with riding kit. And there is quite a pronounced difference in the way they behave on the trail. The Spur feels firmer, tauter, doesn't react to small, medium-sized impacts so well, but does ramp up nicely for big impacts. The YT Izzo feels livelier, much more reactive to smaller, medium-sized impacts, give better traction on tricky climbs compared to the Spur. Unless you have very smooth pedaling, the YT Izzo can feel too lively on the climbs, and that lockout lever can be useful on smoother climbs, pointless off-road, but a compression adjustment would be useful rather than a full-blown lockout in my opinion. When it comes to price and value for money, it's a clear winner for the YT Izzo. The Pro Race Edition bike I rode had a SRAM X01 group set with carbon fibre DT Swiss wheels and a nice finishing kit, and it cost £4,600. The Transition Spur here with the same group set, but aluminium DT Swiss wheels and some nice carbon fibre handlebars and other finishing kits cost £6,000. And YT offers a bigger range of models as well. In fact, the SRAM GX Eagle model costs less than a Spur frame set. The whole bike for less than the money of this Spur frame. And that really highlights the difference between the direct sales model, which YT Izzo is, the bike arrives in a box and you build it yourself, versus buying from your local bike shop and that dealer network and that customer sales support you get from buying from a bricks and mortar retailer. So how do both bikes compare when it comes to riding them? Well, in one area, the Spur is a clear winner. The weight of the bike is just 25 pounds compared to 27 for the YT Izzo, despite it wearing some very flash carbon fibre wheels. So when it comes to speed, the Spur wins that battle easily. On climbs, flat trails, outer corners, the Spur gets up to speed so quickly, and it feels so alive and so instant. The moment you get in the power, it just flies along the trail, and it feels closer to a cross-country race bike in the way it handles the speed or gives you the speed on the trail. It really does a good job of transferring your power through the cranks into forward motion. So if you like climbing fast and you like big epic days in the hills or mountains with lots of elevation, the Spur is a bike to pick. But when it comes to riding your favourite downhill trails, technical sections, flowing single track, the two bikes are very similar, and splitting them apart is quite tricky. For me, the Spur feels sharper, more laser focused, a bit edgier, a bit harder hitting, but you have the long wheelbase, the long reach and a slack head angle which gives good stability in the rough, and the damping on the new SID fork is excellent and really handles itself well, good stiffness as well from the 35mm stanchions. But despite all that, it does feel a bit edgier when you're riding closer to your limit or the limit of the bike in fast, rough trails. The margin for error feels smaller. In comparison, the YT Izzo feels a bit more nimble, a bit more agile, easier to move around the trail, a bit more suspension travel to give you a bit more kind of room for error. The suspension is very well damped on the YT Izzo as well. The fork offers a similar level of stiffness to the SID here, but the damping seems to get better capability in very rough repeated hits. This reminded me more of a cross-country race bike in the way the suspension handled big impacts and roots and rocks, whereas the YT Izzo felt more like a bigger trail bike and just gave you a bit more room for movement in very technical trails. They both have that stability you want from the long wheelbase, the slack head angle as well, but the Spur just feels a bit more edgy, a bit more tiptoey at very high speed trails. In amazing fun of course, and like super wicked fast, but I felt more relaxed in the same trails at the same speed on the YT Izzo. Felt like I had more bike underneath me, a bit more kind of suspension to cope with the impacts from the roots and rocks. So it's clear to me both bikes are excellent when it comes to descending, tasty technical trails, and both bikes perform extremely well in those sort of trail situations. And looking back at my Strava times for riding both bikes on the same trails, there's not much in it at all really. They're both level paying on the same trails. They're both equally fast and equally capable on the descents. Both a lot of fun. The YT Izzo perhaps a bit more capable, but Spur doesn't hold back at all. So both very good bikes. So which is better and which would I pick? Well, this is something I've ummed and ahed about for ages, and it's a really tricky one. I think if money's no object, the Transition Spur wins it for me. I love the low weight of the bike. I like all the details, like generous space in the front triangle for a big water bottle, the threaded bottom bracket, the external rear hose routing, lots of nice details on the bike. But my wallet says the YT Izzo is just a banging bargain. Get a lot of equipment and carbon wheels for the money, but the weight is heavy for that bike, so that weight is an issue. And there's limited space inside the front triangle for a big water bottle. You've got a press fit bottom bracket as well. But if you really have to push me for a decision, I think the Transition Spur is my downcountry king, the winner of this battle. Now, hopefully this video has been useful and interesting to you if you're in the market for this sort of bike and you are choosing between the Spur and the Izzo. Hopefully I pointed out some differences based on my time of riding these two bikes, and I have been fortunate to ride both bikes. Unfortunately not at the same time. That would be amazing, but you have to make the best of what you have available. And let me know if you agree or disagree with my verdict in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. A very interesting debate between the two bikes. Two of the hottest bikes in this kind of short travel 29er trail bike category right now. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, Twitter as well, and all that jazz. I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.